From handbag throwing and racing in heels to showing off your prowess with a hula hoop or not. Myanmar's Drag Queen Olympics are just one of the highlights of the country's biggest ever LGBT festival. A milestone for the community in a country where same-sex relations are still officially illegal.
I'm really excited to bring you the upcoming interview with a very special guest. You'll hear him discussing all the great and courageous work that he's currently engaged in. And if you feel inspired to help him continue these efforts, please consider making a donation earmarked for his projects. Or you can give a general donation that will support the wider movement in Myanmar. Our ongoing support has been so very helpful and appreciated by those in the country who are struggling during these dark days. Simply go to insightmyanmar.org/donation to contribute today, or stay tuned to the end of the episode to hear more options. For now, let's hear from that guest himself.
Some people don't know about LGBT people. You get people who are LGBT, but they don't know what that is. They don't understand. So that's why it's difficult for other people to understand as well.
So I would say this is not just for LGBT community, this is for the whole country, and like acknowledging the equality and basic human rights.
I'm really pleased to be joined here by Pyae Phyo Kyaw, also known as Victor, here on Insight Myanmar podcast. He is speaking to us from deep in the jungle, as we'll get to later, in terms of what he's doing there, how he's helping. But we'll first be examining where he came from and how he got there. So, Pyae Phyo Kyaw, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
Yeah, so you have had quite a journey. We're going to talk about where you are and what you're doing in a moment, but let's first find out where you came from. So in whatever detail you're comfortable, can you share a bit about your background and upbringing and childhood?
Okay, so let me introduce myself a bit. My name is Pyae Phyo Kyaw, also known as Victor. I'm a 29 years old doctor from Myanmar. I'm half Chinese and half Korean. So if I were to talk about myself, I'll have to start from my childhood. I was born in a small town, and my dad is a Buddhist and my mom is a Christian. So there was like always power struggles within the family, especially when it comes to religions. And I'm a gay. So I'm aware of myself being gay since I was young. And both religions are not gay friendly, because Buddhism taught us being gay is a consequence of our evil doings in the past life. And Christianity taught us being gay is a sin. So in the earliest days of my life, I kept refusing myself being gay. What's worse is my dad likes to use violence of my mom. He's not loyal. It's always him who cheated on her, and yet he was the one who always beaten my mom. So it's not to say to come out of the closet to tell about my sexual orientation. I dare not accept the fact I'm gay. So the society I grew up was a bit homophobic. They see gay people as funny creatures, as things that deserve to be mocked. And even my dad and brothers used to make fun of gay people. It was totally okay to discriminate, to make fun of, and to insult gay people until recently in Myanmar. So I kept denying my existence. So I was lonely and a bit depressed. And my childhood was not that pleasant. And when I was 16, after I finished high school, I went to the medical school. And it was not my choice. Actually, I wanted to be an artist. But my family chose it for me. So I went to medical school, and I really suffered in the first few years of my university life because although medical school is not actually my passion, and on the other hand, I was struggling with my sexual orientations. So it's really hard. Only after fourth year of my university life, I learned how to accept myself. I began to realize that I am not the problem. The people who think gay people are inferior and they are sinners, that's the real problem. I began to realize that. So that's when I learned to embrace myself and love myself and accept myself proudly. But I didn't come out then at the time because I thought it was not ready to face the challenge and pressure given by the homophobic society. So I waited. Only after I completed my internship, I came out as gay.
That's an incredibly powerful story to share. Thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable about this topic that you've lived through, and just what tremendous courage I'm thinking as I hear this of what you've had to face outside to find a way through internal acceptance and love. And I'm wondering, when you did decide to finally come out, what form did that come in? Did you express this to selected people, or was it more public? And what was the reaction?
The first one to know that I'm gay is my grandma. I told her like second years of my university life, and she was quite shocked. And she only asked me one question: "Are you sure that you can face all the challenges?" And I said, "Yes, but I'm not ready now, so I have to wait a bit." And that's all. She never told me another things about my sexual orientation. And the second one was my sister. She was shocked too, and she cried, and she asked me, is there anything that you can do to change it? Because I'm afraid you might get bullied, and you might get mocked, and you might be a laughingstock. She told me, but I told her, it's okay. It's not time yet, so I will not come out publicly, and I'll wait for the right moment. So she said, it's okay. Whatever you are, I'll still love you because you are my brother. And only after I completed my internship, I decided to come out publicly, and that's when I told my mom. My mom also cried, and she asked the same thing. Can't you change it? So I said no, because in the earlier years of my university life, I even tried to take my life because I feel guilty. Because the society tells us gays are sinner. Being gay is a punishment. that we receive for our evil doings in a past life. This is like an atonement. We deserve to be discriminated. We deserve to be bullied. And that's what I believed at the time. So I tried to take my life several times. And I told my mom about that. And her reaction changed suddenly. Okay, please don't do that. Never try it again, because whatever you are, even if you're gay or you're straight, I love you because you are my son, not because you're straight. Okay, so the only thing I am afraid of is you'll get bullied in the future if people know about your sexual orientation. If you're sure that you can face challenges and you can endure it, I'm on your side, she said. And after that, I came out publicly by using Facebook. I announced my sexual orientation, that I'm gay. So I think that's the right time, because I got my degree from medical university and I'm a full-fledged doctor and I can make a living on my own. So I'm ready to face the challenges. That's when I decided to come out.
I see. And as you came out publicly, what reaction did you find from your father and other male members of the family that you referenced growing up might not have had the most open and tolerant attitudes about these things?
My dad and I were not that close because, as I said before, he was not he is not the best dad. So I never told him openly about my orientation, but he knew it and he kept silence about it. So I think it's okay. I even introduced my boyfriend to him, and he showed no signs of aggression. So I think it's okay.
I see.
Yeah. But the society, they were a bit shocked. But during the last decades, it's becoming more gay-friendly in our society because of the Thailand BL drama or Chinese BL drama. People are more familiar with gay people and gay culture, so it's not that hard. But I face certain unfair treatment in my working environment because I moved to Mandalay to follow my partner, and I work at a private hospital. And the administration's department treated us unfairly because we are not allowed to put into the same group, and we are not allowed to eat together because they are afraid we might not be able to work properly if we are put in the same group. And for that reason, we have to work separately, and our duty hours are like opposite to each other, so that we cannot see each other. That's what they do. And after 2 years, I quit that job because I no longer can stand it.
Right. And one of the things I'm wondering as I hear this is just the recent history of Myanmar society and the changes it's gone through. Of course, the 2010s were the democratic transition period, and it wasn't fully open, but there were more opportunities. And there's a book which the title is escaping my mind now. It's a book on the recent gay culture in in Myanmar. We'll put it in the show notes as I remember it. And this book tracking the gays in Myanmar society and their acceptance, it referenced how in the democratic transition, a number of the Burmese gay community that had gone into exile for their own safety came back into the country in the 2010s and started to be more open, and not just in their lifestyle, but also in advocacy and organization, and be trying to be somewhat of a presence in society because they felt a little safer. They were just moving baby steps in that direction. So you lived through all this. You knew that you were gay very young in life before the democratic transition, and then you came of age and became a young adult and mature adult as the country was opening up. So did you, in front of your eyes, did you see or experience any difference in the tolerance, let alone the safety of being gay in Myanmar? Did you see that change at all during those years or not?
Yeah, it's changed a bit because the democratic transition started in 2010, but I only came out in 2017 because it took years to get familiarized. And I would say that it's true that it all started after 2010 because that's when we are able to use more freely the internet. We have more access to internet because before 2010, it was really hard to know what the other countries on the world are doing, and like we are in the dark and we don't know what's going on in other country, what's going on in the world. And only after 2010, yeah, I would say that's true.
Right, I see. So your coming out kind of coincided with a slightly safer, slightly more accepting population than 10 or even 5 years earlier, let's say.
Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. So, and as far as your partner goes, what was his journey like? Did he have it any easier for you in coming to accept his identity?
No. He has a harder journey because his family is more like conservative or old-fashioned, I would say, and they deny to accept him even after we came out. So his family knew that he was gay before he met me. He had a relationship before me. Yeah, and his family knew it, but they denied to acknowledge it. They refused it. And he received unfair treatment within the family just for being gay. And when he met me, he was still thinking that he is a sinner and he deserved to be treated unfairly by the family. It's okay because he's such a shame for the family. He still believes it. So I have to change his way of thinking. And I told him, being gay is not a sin. Being gay is a natural thing, and you shouldn't be shameful for yourself. It's them who should be shameful because you are their family members and yet they treated you unfairly and like they are loving you because you are straight. If they really love you, they should love you even if you are gay or you're straight, whatever you are, they should still love you, right? So you have to change your way of thinking so that you could live more freely, I told him. And he finally accepted that, and only after that he was able to come out of his family's control. And his family still forces us to try to separate us, and they forces him to marry a woman. But we are no longer kids, no longer under their control. So we move to an apartment. We rent an apartment, and we make a living on our own.
And living in Myanmar society, how open are you able to be just in a public sphere, not in behind closed doors or with friends or in places where you feel safe, but just walking down the street, holding hands, or traveling and booking reservations as you go, or just behaving in a way outside, wherever you are, whether it's in countryside or vacation or monastery or wherever, that is able to be open in terms of people seeing how you are to each other, and to what extent, if at all, have you not done that and been careful in certain kinds of environments?
Yeah, till today they will still laugh at us because when we hold each other's hand and walk down the street, people will see us like awkward. Should I say awkward, or like they would laugh behind us? But it's been a lot easier lately.
Right. And you mentioned how you grew up in a split household of Karen, Christian and then Buddhist, also with two different sides of the family having different religions. Do you identify with one of those religions, or both, or neither?
I identify myself as Christian.
Okay.
I took my mom's side, yeah.
Right. And your partner?
He's a Buddhist.
Right. Great. So that brings us up to the coup 1 year ago. Learned a bit about your life and your education, your partner, how Myanmar society was changing at the time. When the coup hit and the protests started right out in the streets several weeks later, one of the things that many were remarking on is just how diverse some of the groups out were, how creative, how funny, how dynamic the groups were. There were even Rohingya groups that were identifying themselves as such, which would have been unheard of just several weeks before. And then, of course, there were groups of the LGBTQ community that came out dressed in any number of ways, with signs identifying themselves as who they were, walking with everyone else. And this, to me, seemed kind of landmark to have this community be so open in who they were and out on the street with everyone else. Even though these times were very scary and very dark for how the military responded, it seemed like something of a spark of light, that at least there was a solidarity together, or at least appearing to me very far away and not a part of any of these communities, what appeared to be a solidarity and something of a breakthrough, even on a small level. So I'm wondering for you, if you participated in any of those, or your friends did, or even if you just heard about them from afar, what was your response in seeing some segments of these communities be able to dress and identify themselves and walk in groups so openly in ways that are not very common in recent history?
I did not participate in that group, but I really appreciate them, because we see it as a chance to prove ourselves that we are equal and we are worthy of respect, and we can also do right things. And it's time to tell the society that we are not different. We are also able to do the right things, and we also what should I say? We also despise the military government. It's time to tell the society that we are one. We are not different. We see it as a chance. So I really appreciate them doing that. And how people see us change a bit after that, I believe.
How so? How did it change?
Before the coup, even if it's a little bit familiar, even before the coup, it's a bit safer. It became a bit safer for us than before, but it's not to this level. And after the coup, after the LGBT society joined the protest and doing whatever we can, people start to see us, oh, we are one. They are just different, but they are not inferior, and they are not cowards. Because before the coup, people used to describe cowards as gay. Are you gay? Why are you so coward? They use the term gay as a symbol of weak and wicked and coward. And they started to realize that it's not true, because we are also brave and we can do the right things, and we know rights from wrong, and we are also resisting the military government. So we have to stop discriminating them. And they start to change in a positive way.
That's incredible. That's really powerful. So did you actually hear this kind of conversation going on, either directly or in an online forum, that members of the straight community were actually reevaluating and revising their prejudice and their associations based on this moment of people coming together, and that in real time in front of you, you actually saw them begin to change the way they looked at this part of the community and their relation to it? Were these conversations you were actually a party to?
Yeah, the most often used social media in Myanmar is Facebook, and you can see them a lot on Facebook. And the most obvious thing is the NUG government allowed a gay man to be their minister. That's an incredible thing, right? I think you've heard of him. And the Karenni state I'm currently at, they're not that gay friendly, because they have so many traditions they have to follow, and gay thing is not one of their culture. But when we arrived here and we do little contributions, and they acknowledge us, and they even avoid using the word gay in front of us, because it might offend us. So they start to see that, oh, being gay is not that bad. And that's the changes I've seen so far.
That's extraordinary. So going back to when the coup happened, can you trace a bit how you and your partner were participating? I know that you're in Karenni state now, you're deep in the jungle, but bring us back a year, and what were you doing those first few weeks and months?
I'll have to go back to like 2 years before the coup. We were planning to study abroad, especially to UK, and the COVID pandemic took place, and we have to cancel our plans. And then the coup took place. We both came from families with military background. My uncle is a high-rank military officer, and his brother is a military officer too. But we've never we never knew how the military violate the human rights in ethnic states. We really didn't know that. And when we started to see their violence and their inhumane ways of responding to protests, and we began to realize that we have been lied our whole life, that they are fair, they are good. So it was really shocking. And we have to stand for justice, I think. So that's why we joined the protest, and we support the CDM movement. Because when the health workers participate in CDM, patients will suffer a lot. We know that. So we try to compensate in a way by helping, by treating them at the charity clinics, and by raising funds for them to go to the private hospitals. We tried it various ways, but the SAC, the military, tried to cut off everything we did. They raided the charity clinics and arrest the doctors, and they forced the private hospitals not to work with the CDM doctors. So that's when I thought our ways will no longer work. So we have to go one step further. So there's nothing I can do much by staying at home. So I have to go somewhere where I will be more effective. And I heard there are many IDP camps across the country who need medical care. So I tried to go to Kitchen State, but it didn't work. They said the routes are not safe. So please wait. And I tried to go to the Chin State, and it's the same. Okay. So a friend of mine asked me, there was a IDP camp in Karenni State with over 2,000 refugees, and they need medical care. So can you please help me? And I said yes. And I had to persuade my boyfriend to come with me, because he's not like me. He's not like me. He used to live in comfort zone, and he was afraid to go out of his comfort zone. So I persuaded him, and then he said yes, because people need us. So we got here in June 2021. And it's been over 7 months that we're here.
Wow, that's remarkable. So over 7 months, you've been living basically in the jungle with a mobile medical tent, living and caring for the Karenni. Is that right?
Yes.
And how's that experience been?
When you said jungle, it's really a jungle. It's not like the rural areas. It's not like we're living in a village, and it's really deep in the jungle, because in May 2021, the military launched a long-range attack to the village that I'm currently with, and it hit the church, and 4 people died. So they dare not live in a village. So they moved deep into the jungle. And when I first came here, it's really hard, because there's no infrastructure. We only have tarpaulin rainproof sheets and bamboos, and that's all we have. So we have to build tents with that, and the only water source we can get is rainwater. So we have rice, but we have to, mostly all we have was bamboo shoots that we have to eat. There's hardly any meat.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really like a new experience for me. And we tried to set up a camp inside the jungle. And gradually right now our camp is not that bad. We filled with more supplies, and it's quite functioning well. We do not live in a group. We set up our tents in over a wide area, just fast, because we are afraid that the military would launch again the long-range missile or will perform an airstrike, so that in case they do that, by dispersing our tents, it will lessen the damage. So, yeah.
And you told me that just the other day there were airstrikes. So you, even in how you're living, you've already faced airstrikes. Is that right?
Yeah. But as I said before, our camp area is very large. So they perform the airstrike near the border, not inside the main camp. So that's lucky.
So how far were you from where the airstrike hit approximately?
I think it's 2 or 3 miles, because our camp area is like about 20 miles.
That's not far, 2 or 3 miles. So what was your experience in seeing that airstrike as close as you were? What happened?
My reaction was a bit angry. I would say that because to perform an airstrike against its people is really, what should I say, cruel or inhumane, or because it cost a lot of money even to buy a gun. My reaction was a bit angry, because how could a military use airstrike against its own people? I was really shocked. And for the Karenni people, it's not the first time that they face such an airstrike, because the military perform it again and again over the past months, but it's first time for me. But I've been quite familiar with the explosive sounds, so it's not that frightening for me. The only reaction I got was angry.
I imagine there's also a certain sense of helplessness that when something is falling from the sky, where do you possibly go? How do you, and it happens so immediately, without warning, without knowing when it's coming, that there just must be a feeling, I imagine, of helplessness and not knowing how to protect oneself and others.
Yes, that's the other reason that I was angry, because we have no ways to counter the airstrike or to shield us, to prevent us.
Right. And you mentioned that you've become used to explosives. I take it to mean that since the coup, you've been used to explosives. I don't imagine you would have had much experience before that. Is that right?
Yeah, I've never heard an explosion before the coup. Only after the coup, especially when I came to the Karenni state. That's when I start to hear the explosive sounds day and night. Yeah. I've never heard an explosion before the coup, and it was only after I moved to Karenni state that's when I first started to experience an explosion. Because there are battles going on days and nights, and I could hear it from my base. So when I first heard the explosion, I was like restless and really afraid, and I couldn't sleep at all. I worked back and forth, and I was really nervous, and I was afraid when would it fall over me. And I prepared my packages, and I just walk around the camp. And after months later, after I've heard it so many times, I get used to it.
Right. And so this transformation you've gone through, like so many people in Myanmar now, I should say, but it's really quite remarkable. Until last year, your biggest challenge, I take it, was living as a gay couple in Myanmar and the prejudice faced from that. And you went from that being your biggest challenge to setting up a mobile medical clinic in the jungle among a group of people that come from a different ethnic and linguistic background, while explosives are going off almost every day. This is just an unimaginable transformation from one life to another that I think most of our listeners couldn't begin to even understand or contemplate what we would do if we were in that place and things had changed so dramatically. Do you ever pause to think about where your life has gone in the past year and how you've gotten here and how your own day-to-day has changed? Or are you just so caught up in the daily life and the necessities you haven't really had time to process how drastically things have changed in the past year for you personally?
I really had no idea that all this would happen. We were not expecting a coup, actually. So even last year when the COVID-19 took place and we are still planning to go abroad and we're trying to sit for the lab exam, and suddenly this happened. And we were not expecting a coup. And I was planning to sit for the lab exam last year. And all this happened suddenly. But it's all thanks to the teachings of my mom and my grandma, I think. They taught me to do whatever I believe is right, no matter how hard the situations are, how the odds are. They always tell me to keep doing whatever you believe is right. And please do not keep silent when you see something injustice is going on. That's what they taught me, and I applied it to my daily life. So it's not after the coup happened that I chose to do such things, because even before the coup, I used to fight against superiors from my job, because I never kept silence whenever I see something is not right. So, like I was, what do they call such person? I don't know the English word for that. They called it Burmese and Gwaza.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I applied that principle to the current situations, and the other thoughts that drive me to do it is, if not you, if it's not you, there will be no one who will be doing this. So you have to start from yourself. That's what I thought. So if I have to wait for the others to take actions, then what if the old other people wait like me? There will be no one to stand against the military. So that's what I thought. So it has to be me who start to take actions. So if all people think like me, the revolution would end more quickly, I think. So that's when I decided to come to the Karenni state.
That's quite powerful. So now you and your partner have taken on the responsibility of doing something I assume you've never done before, setting up and establishing a mobile medical clinic in the middle of a combat zone where civilians and IDPs are caught in the conflict and explosives and airstrikes are going on every day. I imagine the supply is also quite challenging. What has your experience been like for the last 7 months and the learning curve you've gone through in setting up this mobile medical clinic in a region that you really have no experience in?
Actually, it's quite difficult because the main difficulty is lack of facility and transportations. Again. So it's true there are so many difficulties in doing what I've been doing, but it wouldn't be possible if I were alone. I always turn to other people whenever I face an obstacle, a difficulty, and I could overcome them one by one. I usually never look so far ahead. I only try to solve the problems on daily basic. And the main difficulty here is lack of facility and transportations, because all the transportation routes are cut off by the military. We always try to cut off all the connections to get here, because they know it's the people defense forces who are taking care of our security. So they try to cut off whatever supplies we try to carry inside the camp. And our mobile clinic has not much facility. You know, some diseases are hard to treat, and some are even hard to diagnose, hard to be diagnosed. So, and we don't have a tertiary center to refer the patients in case we cannot, in case that are out of our league.
Right.
Yeah, that's the main problems here.
How did you go about that even from the start? You know, I know you're trained as a doctor, but you've never done anything like going into the remote area you're in and setting up something from scratch with in a conflict zone with only the materials you have on hand and the knowledge you have from your training. So as you began to take on that mission and that responsibility, how did you even begin to contemplate and to set up what would be an effective mobile medical unit in a conflict zone?
I must say it's all thanks to our seniors, because I have like 4 or 5 seniors on who lived in the city. So whenever I face a difficulty, I ask them for opinions, and that's what guides me.
So they've given you some good advice.
Yeah, because they are also trained to work in remote areas. Because before they became specialists, they have to take trainings in such areas. So they have experience in that, and I took their advice, and I had to read a lot. So at first there were not so many complicated cases in my clinic, but as the time goes on, more and more complicated cases are coming to my clinic, because all the other clinics in the area are closed or had to move because of the battles, and we are the only functioning clinics in our area. So more and more complicated cases are coming, and especially the COVID cases. So I try to manage, and I see what I can do for them and do it according to the resources.
Right. And as you're now responsible for taking care of so many people, and people with such a range of serious conditions, and you're operating in these kind of impossible situations, you also need to find a way to take care of yourself. You and your partner need to be able to do that, because this level of trauma and this level of work, this is something that you also need to stay mentally and physically healthy and balanced. How have you been able to do that?
We quite went into fights several times, because we were worn out, and so we take a break for like 2 or 3 days when we do nothing. So my partner and I went into fights several times over the past 7 months, because we are worn out, and so we're not patient with each other that much. That's why we fought. And when such things happen, we take a break from our daily activity, because we are not the only medical persons in our camp. So we have other medical persons like nurses and public health supervisors in our clinic. So we take a break for like 1 or 2 days, or 2 or 3 days sometimes. And that's how we manage to continue to face the stress here.
Right. And also for the last 7 months, you've been living among the Karenni people. This is an area you haven't been before, and I'm not sure to what extent you knew Karenni people before you went out there. What has the experience been like of embedding with a community for as long as you've had?
Yeah, I've never been to Karenni state before the coup, and I've never seen one. I've never seen Karenni people before, so it was my first time meeting them. And they're friendly and not that difficult to communicate with. The only thing that the only feeling that I caught from talking to them is regret. I regret that I never knew so much things were going on inside the Karenni state before the coup, and I really didn't know that. So they have been suffering what we are seeing right now for several decades. So I heard their stories, and I feel really sorry for them.
What are some of those stories that you heard, or perhaps one story that really sticks in your mind?
Yeah, I think you might know that there is a hydropower plant in Karenni state called Lopida. So it belongs to the Karenni state, and various cities from the mainland receive its electricity from that hydropower plant. But the Karenni people don't. They don't get it. So the power supply lines pass over their head, but they didn't get any benefits from that. And instead, they have to guard the tower. I think it's called tower, right? The tall pillar to support the power lines. So they have to guard them without any benefits. And they didn't get any electricity, and they have to stay in the dock, and yet they have to guard the power lines that came from the hydro plant that existed in their land. And what's worse is there are so many landmines near the base of the tower so that no one could destroy it. The military planted a lot of landmines. And yet they asked the villagers to guard them. And they didn't tell them the exact locations of the landmine. And they forbid them to make a fence around those towers. The Karenni people asked for it. Please make a fence so that we don't step on the landmines. And the military refused to allow it. So there have been mine blast cases in the past decades, and no one from the mainland knew about it. And sometimes when the military came and checked the towers, they asked the villagers to kneel before them. Sometimes they beat them up, and they were never on any media, and we didn't know anything about it. Why the Karenni people hate the military so much?
That's terrible. That's just unspeakable and inhumane to hear. What was your personal reaction when you heard these stories and stories like it?
I was angry and ashamed. I was ashamed of myself because we were living in the same country and I didn't know about that. And I was really angry, and it's became more clear that we have to take down the military, or such things will keep happening. So we must put a stop to them.
Yeah, I just don't know what to say after a story like that. And I'm sure that's just one of many that you've been exposed to, of these terrible, inhumane crimes that have been committed for years, for generations, that are not just committed, but not known about either.
Yeah. And I've seen one by myself last month, because near our camp, there's a village, and there were clashes between the People Defense Forces and the military last month. And so the military took control over the area. And when they retreat, they planted landmines in the fields. So when they retreated, the villagers went back to their village, and there were 2 cases so far that they stepped on the landmines planted by the military. They both lost a limb.
Were those victims brought to you?
Yeah, I had to go and pick the first victim for myself, and it took like 6 hours from my clinic to get to a properly equipped hospital. So he was very lucky that he didn't die on the way.
Now, you mentioned that both you and your partner come from military families. Have you had communication with the members of the family who are in the military, and are they still in the military now?
My uncle retired from military years ago, but he's still in that circle. But I cut off all connections with him since the coup started. And my partner, he sometimes still talk to his relatives, but not that close anymore.
Right. I imagine hearing some of the stories and witnessing some of the things that you're doing really has both of you reflecting quite deeply on those family members and their circles as you were growing up that participated in the military and wondering about them and their activities.
Yeah, I think there'll be things that we didn't know that they committed the same crimes. That's why I cut off all the connections with my relatives. And for my partner, his military related relatives has just entered the military, not that high rank. So he believed that his relatives didn't committed any serious crime till now. So we are trying to persuade him to switch over our side. But for the safety of the family, he was afraid to do so.
Right. Now, you're living in Karenni culture for some time, and you'll be there for some time to come, I imagine. I'm sure those experiences of living among those people is changing you and affecting your own life in various ways. With this kind of transformation in yourself of living among the Karenni, if you were to go back, or when you are to go back to Mandalay, Yangon, other urban cities among Bamar, living in those cities, how do you expect you might change given your experience here? Is there something that you think you would do differently or engage differently based on your experience of living among the Karenni?
Yes, sure. Because I learned that the Karenni people are, what should I say, more realistic. I must say that they are more realistic than those people who live in the big cities, because they faces the bitter truth of the military over the decades. So they know how to survive in this situation. So they are not afraid to lose anything, and they can start from scratch in any time. So that's what I learned from them, and I'm not afraid to lose anything either. And it gives me, I should say, more confidence.
And looking at you and your partner coming to Karenni and setting up there and living there for so long, how has the reception been? I mean, in one regard, you're really foreigners in a way. There's a different language, a different set of customs, an urban countryside, different ethnic background. And then, of course, being a gay couple coming into what is largely a traditional community, I imagine is something different for them as well. So how has that reception been as you came and settled among them?
Yeah. When we first came here, they didn't trust us, and we've been treated differently because it's quite fair, I think, because there's so much racism happening in our country. Back in the mainland, we see the ethnic people as minority, and they are often described as honest but rude and civilized people. And that's what we used to think when we were back in the mainland. And for the Karenni people, they do not trust us. They only trust their own people, and they do not trust, especially Burmese. So we have to work for months to get their trust. And right now, they are treating us like one of them, and they start to see that not all Burmese people are bad. Not all people from the mainland are wicked and cruel. They start to learn that, and I'm really happy to do so.
The different shades of unity you're describing in your story are really remarkable. I mean, you're talking about coming out as gay yourself, and then the pride you see of how the gay community can march in solidarity with people on the streets, and it's dispelling these age-old discriminations and making it have allowing that community to integrate more into the and have a place within overall Myanmar society. And then, so in that sense, you're kind of more of an outsider who's finding a home for perhaps the first time through this sense of everyone together. But then beyond that, you then go into a place where you are among people who are themselves disadvantaged at the hands of people who look like you and talk like you. And so then you're having to be on the other side of that equation, and then they're starting to become comfortable with you. So this is just interesting because it's kind of a microcosm of the overall unity that's happening across Myanmar now, at least from what it sounds like to me, where all these different and distinct groups, whether they were distinct by lifestyle or ethnicity or region or custom, language, whatever, that all these different and distinct groups that haven't had a reason to trust each other before are now finding ways to, and perhaps it's not successful every time, but just from hearing your story, these are some remarkable examples of these divisions starting to be dissolved. Is that something you find as well?
Yeah, I have to admit that. I must say the coup took all of us together. The coup make all division to unite as one. So that's one of the good things that comes from the coup. I must say that.
I agree, and it's pretty ironic because the military always says that Tamada is the only institution that can unite the people. And in this sense, it's true. The Tamada is the only institution that can unite the people because the sense of hatred and solidarity against them is that unfortunately that does happen. But hopefully it can give us some hope going forward that what we're seeing now is not just an episode of convenience, but is something that will be lasting, and that there will be a place for gay society, the gay community in Myanmar society going forward, that there will be Karenni who can trust some Burmese, at least one Burmese, that they aren't like the rest that have terrorized them, and that there will be consciousness on the part of Burmese that these people have suffered under institutions that I might be a part of, and I didn't know I was, but now I've learned I am part of an unjust, inhumane system. And what is my responsibility in tearing that down and building a more equitable one for people that don't have my privilege? So this examination happening in real time is really quite startling and promising as well, I hope.
Yeah, because in the face of greater evil, we all have to unite as one. And most of the members of our clinic met only after they get here. We're not friends before this. And right now we're feeling like we found a family because we've been through so many hardships together. So I hope this will last even after the coup, and this kind of trust will spread. And I think we act as a link between the Karenni people and the Burmese people.
That's beautiful. That's really great. Not only have you been there in Karenni State, meeting so many people in that society and that community and helping them, but you've become somewhat of a local celebrity, at least an online celebrity in Myanmar, for posting what you do, pictures, reflections, and so many people that have never met you and might never met you across the country and the diaspora are following you and cheering for you. And if there was ever a time that people would see that a member of the gay community is not cowardly or weak or anything else, it's now. I mean, you are living the example of how you are serving and helping in ways that so few people could. And through the online sharing, people are able to follow along virtually what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so I think just the example that you're setting and the ability of the internet to share that so that so many people know, I think that itself is breaking down barriers. So I'm wondering, aside from your direct relations in the Karenni community, have you had interactions or conversations or online dialogue where people that are just following your story that they have also been impressed or had their mindset changed by your example?
I hope so, because I've done news with other medias, and I participated in like 2 or 3 online talk, and I saw positive comments under their post. So I hope I could set an example and I could change people's mind. I hope so.
Oh, so that's amazing. I mean, you're changing Karenni's mind by being among their community and showing a different side of the Bamar experience. And then back in Bamar society, you're changing those minds by taking a group that has had certain assumptions and prejudice and showing by your living example how wrong those are. So these are 2 completely different sets of barriers that you're, just by your living example of service, are hopefully breaking down.
When I first came here in June 2021, there were not a single case of COVID inside our camp. But in August 2021, we found 1 case, and we try to cut off the transmission by setting complete lockdown inside the camp, but it didn't work because for some reasons we have to go in and out of the base for security reasons or other reasons. So it didn't work, and the COVID-19 cases rises over 200 cases. So we set up a COVID center inside our camp, and we treated them, and we've seen 10 severe cases so far, whose oxygen concentration level fell under 90%. and we've lost one patient because of the post-COVID-19 complications. So at first we were able to manage such cases because we have medical supplies and we have oxygen. But as the battle's going on, the military forces the oxygen plants to shut down, and so I couldn't find any place to fill my oxygen, to fill the oxygen. So I only have concentrators and power generator and the fuel. And the prices went skyrocket, and I couldn't afford it anymore. And I cannot run the power generator for 24/7. So we have to give the patients episodically oxygen. And there was a patient who suffered from post-COVID-19 complication. I believe it was pulmonary fibrosis and pulmonary embolism. But I don't have enough medications for him, so I gave them like 1 or 2 weeks, and then there's no more medications left, and there's no more oxygen, and so we have to give up on him. And he passed away a week ago. And now we have to shut down our COVID center because we no longer have enough oxygen, or we no longer have enough medications.
I'm really sorry. As a doctor and a caregiver, that must be tremendously difficult to simply not have enough of what's needed to meet the needs of the moment.
So the funeral I was talking about this morning, the funeral I have to attend to is his. It's 7 days after he passed away, so they hold a ceremony for him. So I have to attend it this afternoon.
Right. I'm sure we have a number of Burmese listening to this, both in the country as well as diaspora. And I'm sure that many of them have already been following along your journey online, what you've posted, other interviews. But having the chance to speak to them now, is there something you would like to say to them about your experience, informing them about what you're doing, and having the greater community understand what you're seeing and what you're facing? Is there a message you have for them?
Yeah, I would like to say, you might have heard about the difficulties and the tragedies happening in the ethnic area, but you will never know how it feels until you see it for yourself. And most of the Burmese people do not accept that there is a racism that root inside them. Even I didn't see it, but when I came to the Karenni state, I began to realize it. The military tried to install the racism into our generation through the education system. So we have to try to realize it ourselves, and we have to let go of the thoughts that the thoughts that ethnic people are less intelligent, ethnic peoples are rude, ethnic peoples are funny, accents are funny, their traditions are funny. We have to let go of that thoughts, and we will have to start treating them like as equal, and we'll have to give respect to their traditions and their accent and their language.
Thanks for that. And now speaking to the foreign community, those outside of Myanmar or Westerners or in other countries who are listening to this, do you have a message for them as well? Is there something you'd like to say to them?
Yeah. I hope I hope and I believe you all will continue supporting us, our Spring Revolution. And I understand if you could not help us directly, because it's like a political issues. But I believe and I request you to continue support us, because we might have done mistakes in the past, but now most of us see our mistakes and we are ready to change. So please give us a chance to change and give us a chance to walk on the right path.
Thank you. That's really beautiful. That's also very powerful. Looking now at your experience in Karenni society, this is something of a different culture. You're a foreigner, an outsider in there, and anytime any of us goes into a different kind of community, things are different. The customs, the way of relating, some of the behavior and personalities, and that can be a tremendous learning experience. How other people see the world, how other people behave. So what have been, as you've spent now, as you've mentioned, 7 months in Karenni community, that's quite a bit of time. How has it changed you? What are some of the beautiful and special parts of Karenni culture that you want to take with you after this?
Like I said before, they are straightforward people. And they taught me about one thing, because back in the cities, we are told that holding guns are dangerous, and so the military never allowed us to have a gun, even with license. But the Karenni people here has a habit of using what called the gun, an old-fashioned gun, and they're really peaceful. So it teach me that guns are not dangerous. Only people who holding them are dangerous. Yes, because the reason I'm doing this, one reason I'm doing this is because of my family's decision to do what you believe is right. And the other thing is I'm trying to build a community safe for the LGBT people, because I don't want anyone of the next generation to suffer what I've suffered. So I want the society to see us as equal, and we're not weak, and we're not wicked, and we also deserve respect. And that's why I'm trying this hard to set an example. So I hope it will work well.
Yeah, I think you are setting that example. I really do. I really think that this is a moment when so many of those old barriers can break down, and that so many different people in communities can examine assumptions of all kinds that they've had that they're not proud of, and that this could be a moment to get over that and let them go. And I truly hope that does happen.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, thank you so much for taking this time with us on Inside Myanmar podcast. I understand this is your first interview in English. I think you did great. So I think that everyone will be able to understand how well you've articulated and communicated your story. It's incredibly inspiring. I should mention that we have a nonprofit, Better Burma, and that for those listeners that were especially moved and inspired by what you described and who want to support you directly, we encourage any listeners to send a donation through us and with it earmarked for your cause. And we will make sure that it gets there to you.
Thank you. Thank you for your help.
How much longer do you think you might stay on in Karenni? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I plan to stay like at least 2 years here. And I hope by the time our revolution will reach to some point.
I hope so too. I hope you continue being able to help and support those there as you break down boundaries. And I hope you can, even though I'm a vegetarian, I hope that you can get some meat once in a while, add some meat to the bamboo shoots and rice that you're eating.
Yeah, but lately we've been able to manage to get meat. Yeah.
How about Karenni food? Do you have any favorite Karenni food that you've tried there?
Yeah, but most Karenni foods are spicy.
Oh.
Yeah, really spicy. But I like that. I am getting used to it.
That's great. Do you have any particular dish you like most?
Yeah. It's called kongi, or I don't know, the boiled rice.
Right.
Wait, let me check its spelling. I think we pronounce it kongi, C-O-N-G-E.
Mm-hmm.
You know that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's a bit different from what we eat back in hometown. It's a Karenni style kongi. It's spicy and it's like more like a paste than a soup, and it has its unique flavor, and I like that most.
That's great. I hope I can try it someday. Well, thank you so much for taking the chance to join with us. I know what a burden you're under. You're between airstrikes and funerals and the burden of so many depending on your care. And please stay safe. And thanks again so much for your time here.
Thank you too for giving me this opportunity to be here. And I'm really glad that I get to talk to all the listeners across the world. And I really appreciate all your support and love for us. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. As regular listeners are aware, we often remind our audience about our nonprofit mission, Better Burma, at the end of a show. Truth be told, fundraising is hard work, and I can personally attest to the fact that it's really no fun to keep asking for contributions. Yet the situation on the ground in Myanmar is so distressing that we continue to do so on behalf of the Burmese people. What is most helpful at this time are recurring donations, which help alleviate both the stress and time involved in fundraising. If you're able to pledge a certain amount per month, our team can plan around having at least a consistent minimum amount to work with every month. If you would like to join in our mission to support those in Myanmar who are being impacted by the military coup, we welcome your contribution in any form, currency, or transfer method. Your donation will go to support a wide range of humanitarian missions, aiding those local communities who need it most. Donations are directed to such causes as the Civil Disobedience Movement, CDM, families of deceased victims, internally displaced person (IDP) camps, food for impoverished communities, military defection campaigns, undercover journalists, monasteries and nunneries, education initiatives, the purchasing of protective equipment and medical supplies, COVID relief, and much more. We also make sure that our donation fund supports a diverse range of religious and ethnic groups across the country. We invite you to visit our website to learn more about past projects as well as upcoming needs. You can give a general donation or earmark your contribution for a specific activity or project you would like to support, perhaps even something you heard about in this very episode. All of this humanitarian aid work is carried out by our nonprofit mission, Better Burma. Any donation you give on our Insight Myanmar website is directed towards this fund. Alternatively, you can also visit the Better Burma website, betterburma.org. That's betterburma.org, and donate directly there. In either case, your donation goes to the same cause, and both websites accept credit cards. You can also give via PayPal by going to paypal.me/betterburma. Additionally, we take donations through Patreon, Venmo, GoFundMe, and Cash App. Simply search Better Burma on each platform and you'll find our account. You can also visit either the Insight Myanmar or Better Burma websites for specific links to those respective accounts, or email us at info@betterburma.org. If you'd like to give it another way, please contact us. Thank you so much for your kind consideration and support.
So I would say this is not just for LGBT community, this is for the whole country, and like acknowledging the equality and basic human rights.